Hi everybody, it is April, and today we are going to take a fat quarter bundle and we are going to turn it into a quilt with little to no measuring. Now I have been taking classes on Craftsy, and yes, this video is sponsored by Craftsy. Thank you, Craftsy. I have been taking classes called Fun with Fat Quarters, and in the class we are learning how to take fat quarters and fat 8 bundles and cut them in such a way that we can make different patterns using the same cuts. Now, the fat 8s pattern is what I am going to be using. However, I don't have any fat 8s. Well, at least if I do, I can't find them. But I've got fat quarters, and I can take those fat quarters and I can cut them down to the same size that a fat 8s piece of fabric would be. Now, you have the opportunity to join Craftsy for $1.49. The first 1,000 people to click the link in the description below or click the QR code get a 1-year premium membership to Craftsy for $1.49. How can you beat $1.49? This is for new members only. Now, the class that I have been taking is Fun with Fat Quarters. I've also been watching some of Ashley Howe's other classes. Now, in Let's Make a Quilt, she pairs up with Penny Barnes. So Ashley pieces the quilt and then Penny Barnes does the quilting. I've really been enjoying this series. So if you're like me and you think that this offer is just too good to pass up, be one of the first 1,000 people to click the link in the description below or this QR code, and you will receive a 1-year premium membership to Craftsy for $1.49. Now, this is available to new members only. You're not going to regret it. And remember, Craftsy is your online resource for everything creative. So let's get that fat quarter bundle out and start cutting it so that we can make a quilt. So I have cleaned my machine, which is something that you should do before you start using your machine after you've worked on, several projects before. I will leave a link to the video somewhere up here where I show you how to clean your Grace Little Rebel. Another thing, just sidebar, I have started using glide thread in my Little Rebel. There's no lint. I have made probably 2 quilts without changing the needle and without cleaning out the lint from my bobbin case. There's no lint. There was no lint. So if you want a lint-free workspace and you're just doing like piecing of quilt tops, I suggest glide thread. It's good. I like it. So does Maxine. She ran this morning. She was chewing and I shooed her away and she still had it in her mouth, and she ran through the other room, around the corner, and up the stairs. So anyway, back to our originally scheduled programming. I do not have any fat 8s, so I am going to improvise and I am going to use fat quarters. And I can cut my fat quarter in half and it will be a fat 8th. So in case you don't have any fat 8s, and you don't have to use fat quarters, you can cut fat quarters from your yardage if you want to do this project. You don't even have to do that, but I'm not measuring, so if you don't use half a fat quarter, I'm not going to be able to help you as far as measurements. Maybe I can just, put the little measuring stick up to it, tell you what it looks like. I have these 2 fat quarter bundles. And I'm trying to decide which one. Well, I think I've already decided. But the first one is a Hoffman 1895 Watercolors Ruby Red Lipstick. And it's just all of these beautiful hues of red. And you know red is my favorite color. And then I have this bundle that I got from, where did I know I was in Paducah, and I was in the Villa Rosa booth, and they had bundles of different pre-cut fabric. And this is the bundle that I got. Look at those bright, pretty colors. This is the clear winner. Now, let me undo my little bundle. I'm just cutting it and show you the fabrics individually. All right, I'm just going to show them in order, and I'll open them up for you. They are batiks. You can probably tell that by the texture. And as I open them up and put them down, I am going to put them on my ironing surface. And this will be a twofold project. Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. Now batiks, if you're not familiar, they look the same on both sides. So it doesn't matter what side you use, it's the right side. So none of that accidentally putting wrong sides together with this quilt, because there is no wrong side. And I'm not sure if you can see, so they all have that white line running through them. When they're further away, a couple quilt shops that I go to, now this is not white running through, this is green, a darker green running through the lower tension. I'll tear it and we'll see how that goes. I have to try and get this so that you can see it with the light. See the pink, and it is a pink with a lighter pink. Now I have a rainbow batik. Isn't that pretty? So it'll be a nice array. And batiks always have such beautiful colors in them. Is a brown. And it has a light brown running through it. And I am going to snip the end where I folded it, just a little snip. All right, let's see if I did it in the right spot. And these guys are cut pretty dang straight. That's pretty cool. Okay, so here are fat 8s. Ta-da! Okay, so let's create all the fat 8s, and then we'll get started on the no measuring part of our fun quilt block. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So here I have all of my fat quarters, and I have trimmed them down to the largest usable size and folded them in half. I have learned that the largest usable size is not the same for every fat quarter. And I thought that I didn't need to measure for my no measure quilt. However, that's not working out very well. So what I am doing is I am cutting down my fat quarters to 10 inches across. Wait a minute. Nope, I lied. Okay, on the long side, now remember this is folded in half. So long ways, folded in half, I am making it 10 inches. So here I have 18, and I'm going to make it 28 for 10 inches. Then I'm going to flip it, and on the short side, I'm going to make it 8 inches. So let's start on 20. Now first, if you can see, this is not perfectly even. So the first thing I'm going to do is trim this particular one down. And then I'm starting on 20, so I'm going to line up my ruler on 29, making the short side of my fat quarter 8 inches. At this point, I have 2 pieces of fabric. Now I want to cut this halfway across, so let's do that first. So if I have 8 inches, I can measure 4. Hopefully it'll work out, because I have not been having a whole lot of luck on my measuring today. All right, let's see if they match. Whew, got lucky on that one. And then I am going to measure 5 inches, because this is 10 inches wide. So 5 inches should be halfway. I will finish cutting these, and we are going to the design wall, because that is the next step. Okay, so here we go. We have the first row. I think I'm going to want it wider, so I think I'm going to add some more here, and then I will add a strip of my rainbow fabric. Now, let's see, this is 4, 4, 4, 4, and they're going to all end up being 3.5. So 3.5 and 3.5 is 7, and 7 is 14 inches. So I think I'm going to cut my rainbow fabric at, I was thinking 10 inches, but do I want it at 5? So it's not quite so much. I do already see one issue. I've got gray and gray, so I'm gonna have to replace that. So let me get these added, and I don't know, what do I want? to have. All right, so I'm gonna add a strip of red, and then how about a yellow out here, and a purple here. There is a small miscalculation. When I cut this in half, the two blocks that I cut are, when they're sewn together, are going to end up being 4.5, which makes this 9. And this is 10. So I'm gonna have a little extra at the end that I'm gonna have to trim off. Just wanted to forewarn you in case you're going to try and make this pattern. You know, it's looking like I love that blue, which I do, don't get me wrong. All right, so there we go. You know what? I'm gonna cut it at 10. If I decide that I don't like it at 10, I can always cut it down to 5, or 2 strips of 5. Let's see what it looks like. I've added this strip. I don't think I like it. So, I cut a strip of the Joann's fabric. Let's see what we think about that. And maybe it's because it was wider, I don't know. Let's see. Okay, let's take a look at it. I actually like that one better, but I'm still not positive. This is kind of growing on me. Okay. No. 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 All right, so I've got a 10-inch square project now. Let's put this back up. Kind of like the way it works from pink and red and I'm kind of liking it. So let's put some more strips on the other side. Now I'm not sure. One thing we can try, let's fold this in half, which would be 5 inches. Let's see if that makes a difference. So let me get a pin. It's going to be a little poofy, but hopefully we get the idea. Okay. I think I like it wider. It's almost like when it's wider, scraps of these colors are falling down into the border. That's what I think of. That's what we're going with. So, all I've done is stack up these pieces of fabric, and I'm just gonna put them on the wall, whatever order they're in, and we'll see what it looks like. Okay, and then we've got a lime green, which I don't want, so I'm going to put, no I'm not. Alrighty then, I'm gonna find a yellow. Okay. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, which is the same. So 1, 2, 3, okay. So now I need another 10-inch strip of this. All right, this time I'm gonna put it from this end, just so we get an idea of how it looks. All right, and maybe we need one of those up top. I'm kind of loving it. I have a whole stack of these left. So if it turns out that I feel like I need to make my rows longer, I've got the fabric to do it. So let's sew together row 1 and see what happens. So what I like to do is I like to sew one full row and then sew another full row, and then I put those 2 rows together, and then I put them together with 2 other rows that I've sewn. I am just placing them one on top of the other. I have this tape on the bed of my sewing machine. So the red line is where the needle is, and the blue line is where I want to line up the edge of my fabric. That will enable me to get a good 1/4 inch seam. Now when you're quilting, you don't have to back tack, because at some point there's going to be fabric right along this edge. Therefore, you don't have to worry about this first part of your seam unraveling. When you come to a seam, you want to make sure that the seam is pressed in the way that it is across your fabric. So this seam is pressed towards me, so I want to make sure that this seam stays pressed towards me on the other side. If I have any seams underneath, then I want to nest them. But fortunately, so far, no matching seams. And that is one of the beauties of this pattern. Now, ideally, we want to sew a straight line. However, I can't cut straight and I can't sew straight. So I do the best that I can. And what little difference there is will not matter. You can see here, right here, it looks like a straight line, and maybe I cut my fabric wrong, but it is not perfectly straight. Not a problem. Don't get hung up on those small details that in the end don't make a difference. Also keep in mind where you are in your quilting journey, because it could be that I'm 10 years in and you're 1 month in. Don't beat yourself up if you are not able to do at 1 month what I can do easily at 10 years. You focus on improving your skills. Don't compare yourself to others. Now, I do not like to pin. And if you feel like pinning is going to help you, by all means, pin. They just stab me. So what I do is, as I go along, I make sure that my fabric is lined up. If you do pin so that your foot would go over your pin long ways, but don't go over pins. I know in the old days my mom would sew over a pin in a heartbeat, but that is not the acceptable practice in the 21st century. So what you do is you have your pin here, you sew towards it, and then when you get close to it, you remove it. Your fabric shouldn't shift at that point. And although they're not perfect for every occasion, if you use a fabric clip, it is not going to stick you. Fabric clips are the same way that a pin is as far as when you're sewing along. So you sew up to your clip, and of course sewing over your clip, not really an option, although your foot would probably move it out of the way. You remove the clip and sew on. Now here you see this piece, or this row, these rows are not as long as the rows underneath, and that's okay. We expected that from this pattern. You do not have to press fabrics. I have sewn a whole quilt and not pressed one thing. Is that the best practice? No, it's not. It can be done, but you will pay for not pressing as far as your accuracy. Now, I'm not going to say that when I press, I'm totally accurate, because, you know, I'm not. But if I press, it does improve my accuracy. So that is just that. It is totally up to you if you want to press. The traditional quilters will say pressing is absolutely, without a doubt, necessary. You can't sew a quilt without it. Well, you can, because I did. But in order to get the best result, pressing at some point in your project is a good idea. Now, pressing seams is also a tradition among your traditional quilters. You do not have to press the seams. Pressing the seams with heat is supposed to press the seams into the fabric and I guess make something more flat. I really don't know that I can see a difference when I press my seams as opposed to when I do not, but it is a personal choice. You choose what you want to do, and you do you. You want to press your long seam all in one way. That just makes your project look more flat. And also, you might want to keep your quilter in mind if you don't do your own quilting. So I'm the one who pays for my quilting sins because I quilt my own quilts. There are things that you can do for the person who is going to quilt your quilt that will make it easier on them. So here I have this beautiful 4 rows together to go up on my design wall, and I'm that much closer to finishing my quilt. My quilt top is almost complete. So I have put these strips, and maybe you can see them better over here. These blocks that I have left over, I've put them along the edge as a border. So, I know I've been asking you all for a lot of help lately. I do so appreciate you giving me your opinion. I know I love to give my opinion. I hope you enjoy giving your opinion as much as I do giving mine. So it's either this, or do we want a solid? A solid might just wrap it all together. So let's take these and let me find a solid fabric. So here we have just a 2-inch solid border. Or, yep, you can see here off to the side, we've got our different blocks left over from this project. It's very bright, I've got to give it that. So let me know if you like the solid or the leftover blocks. I'm leaning towards the solid. And yeah, it's red because you know that's my favorite color. But if you think it should be a solid in a different color, let me know. So this is a fun way to make a quilt with little measuring, not a lot. You can use fat eighths or fat quarters, and I chose to throw some yardage in there. You don't have to do that. You could have just made your whole quilt out of these blocks. And I did not put this border or this border on the bottom. I thought this was long enough. So I can always change that before I finish it. But it ended up, it's about 51 inches wide, and it's about between 71 and 72 inches long. That's a decent length. I don't think I really want to add another 10 inches to that. That'd be 81. But I guess if it were for somebody really tall, they would appreciate that. Thank you so much for watching. I know that there are so many channels out there. I see new channels in my feed all the time, and they're really doing great videos. So thank you for watching my videos. I do very much appreciate it. Have a great day, eat some chocolate, and be kind to everyone. Until next time, bye.